All right, Shalom. This is your brother Nahoya from the GMS Orlando camp. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah. And a sincere salutation to all you AUKUS, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and the AUKUS, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. This is Revelation chapter 17 and verse 12. And it says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast." I'm going to jump down to verse 16. And it reads, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire." And I want to go into a lesson on World War III and prophecy. All right. World War III and prophecy. All right. So for those who are not aware, all right, Revelation 17, in particular, when you get down to let's start up. You get down to this third verse, all right, talks about a woman who sitteth upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, before I go into the articles, I want to just give a visual. All right, this is what Revelation, the 17th chapter, is referring to. All right, the woman that sits on the beast is America. All right, the seven heads, all right, represent these nations, all right. So it represents the Greeks, the British, Germania Minor, Spanish, French, Romans, Germania Major, all right. Now the 10 horns represent the European Union, all right, which consists of Belgium, Denmark, France, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Greece, Spain and Portugal, England and Ireland, and West Germany. This makes up the 7 heads and the 10 horns. All right, now I'm going to go into some articles to show you, all right, particularly how prophecy is beginning to destroy this organization, all right? NATO in particular for this lesson, all right? Because World War III and prophecy are one and the same, okay? So let's start off. Revelation 11 and 14. And it reads, "The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly." All right. So the third world's woe, all right, or World War III cometh quickly. All right. And part of World War III, according to prophecy, is that this union, all right, this organization will begin to turn on each other. All right. And we're beginning to see that. And I want to go into some news articles that brings that out. All right, particularly this, all right. This is the latest news, all right. France recalls ambassadors from U.S. and Australia, citing exceptional gravity of AUKUS submarine deal, all right. And for those who don't know, the U.S. undercut France to make a deal with Australia, all right, for submarines or in nuclear weapons, all right. And this is going to have a lot of implications, particularly closing in on the border of China, all right. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can get a map just to get a visual. All right. So Lord willing, we can get a map. So as we see right here, all right, you have Australia, and then you have China. Now, what the U.S. is trying to do is to set up a nuclear arsenal, in essence, in this location, which will give them access, all right, to China, all right, as far as proximity for nuclear weapons. All right, now this is a clear provocation, okay? But the scandalous part about this, if you will, is that they have undercut their own NATO partners for this deal, okay? And we're going to read about this. Okay, so let's go to where this began. All right. And it's the stunning betrayal of France by America over nuclear subs for Australia signals a huge geopolitical shift in U.S. strategy. All right, and I'm just going to hit the points. I'm not going to get all of it. All right, it says, in its growing confrontation with China, a ruthless Washington has demonstrated that what matters to it now is not Europe, but the Indo-Pacific region. This is where the new Cold War is to be fought. All right, now I went into this at the previous World War III and Prophecy video on the growing economic status of China, all right, and how it is threatening the position of the U.S. on the global stage. Now, the U.S. still has the strongest military, all right? However, they are quickly losing their footing, especially in the economic space, to China, all right? And China's using its economic resources to beat their plowshares into swords, all right, and their pruning hooks into spears. Now, a response to this is the U.S., all right, is beginning to create these provocations, all right, to disrupt the growth of China, all right, which is Moab in the scriptures. Now, this is another move, and when you think in chess terms, this is another way that America, if you will, is positioning itself to attack. All right, it's moving over here to this area and striking this deal with Australia to build nuclear submarines. All right, and you can see how threatening this is to China. All right, especially with everything else that's went on in the news. And I covered that news in the previous World War III and Prophecy video. All right, so let's read a little bit of this article. Not the entire article. We'll just cover the main points. All right, it says, on Wednesday night, America's Joe Biden, Australia's Scott Morrison, and Britain's Boris Johnson held a virtual trilateral summit whereby they affirmed a new agreement titled AUKUS, a groundbreaking pledge to intensify military cooperation between the three Anglosphere allies, bringing them even closer by pooling critical technologies and research. Chief amongst the headlines from this was the announcement that the U.S. would now share its nuclear-powered submarine technology with Australia. The goal of this is to intensify attempts to contain China militarily, even though the three countries did not say it directly. However, the submarine pact involved Canberra abruptly scrapping a $43 billion deal, all right, a $43 billion deal with France to build 12 such submarines, a move which provoked outrage from senior officials in Paris, who effectively accused the U.S. of betrayal. So what you have is the whore that sitteth upon the beast beginning to take off of the plate of the beast. All right, and this is an act of desperation. All right, and that's why the scriptures say this in Daniel, the second chapter. And let's jump down to the 42nd verse. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seeds of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And this confederacy, if you will, is beginning to be destroyed. All right? It's beginning to eat itself, if you will. All right? This move of desperation for $43 billion, basically taking this $43 billion deal from France, all right, in order to position themselves better for an attack on China shows you that, again, in Daniel's the 2nd chapter, that they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another. Now, France, in response to this, has done something else. They have recalled ambassadors from U.S. and Australia. So they've called their ambassadors home. And this is basically a gesture of a refusal to talk, if you will. All right, it's a sign of disapproval. Okay, now it says Paris has recalled its ambassadors from Washington and Canberra for consultations, citing the unacceptable behavior of the U.S., UK, and Australia in striking a nuclear submarine deal that scuttled a French shipbuilding contract. At the request of the President of the Republic, Emmanuel Macron, I decided to immediately recall to Paris for consultations our 2 ambassadors in the United States and in Australia, French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian said on Friday. Le Drian said the decision was justified by the exceptional gravity of the September 15th announcement made by Australia, the US, and the UK. Now, by France calling back their ambassadors, this is a sight of disapproval. It's a gesture of disapproval. But the options that are left to France in response to this betrayal, as they have put it, one of those responses is this. This is one of the options, all right? It says, as a furious France plots its revenge for America's treachery on its sub-deal, will it take the nuclear option of quitting NATO? All right, and again, NATO creates the 7 heads of the beast, all right? And the 10 horns is the EU. That combination is how America, in particular, is able to wield power, all right? Now, Esau ultimately rules all of these different kingdoms or governments. But America in particular is the head, all right? This is why this is the, it's known as the woman that rideth on the beast. Because basically she uses this beast, EU and NATO, to wield her agenda, all right? This is why the scriptures say this in Revelation, the 17th chapter. And let me jump down to 18. All right, and it reads, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So America is that great city that reigneth over the kings of the earth. And this is a gesture of, this is a show of force, all right? This is a show of power by blindsiding France and doing a deal with the U.S. or doing a deal with Australia and the UK behind the back of France, which is supposed to be an ally, all right, which leaves France in this position of responding, all right, and one of those options is to quit NATO. Now, this hasn't been confirmed. This is just one of the options as a response, all right, but let's look at this. Let's just read a little bit of this. It says the anger in Paris is stratospheric towards Washington. Yeah, you just snatched $43 billion from that country. All right, and a wounded President Macron may just follow de Gaulle's example from the 1960s and say au revoir to the transatlantic military alliance. A stab in the back is how French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian described U.S. President Joe Biden's announcement of a new club of 3, the U.S., Great Britain, and Australia, under the guise of countering China in the Indo-Pacific region. Because again, the U.S. is playing chess. They're losing the economic front, so they're using the only resource that they have left, which is the sword. All right, so this is a deal, and it's not more so about the money as it is about the positioning of a nuclear arsenal close to the mainland of China. Because the idea is that if war breaks out, they're going to take the fight to China as opposed to having to defend their own homeland. This is why they have military bases all across the planet. Those are garrisons. All right. Now, France, has bases, I believe, in Africa, maybe some other places. But concerning countries, no other country has more military bases across the planet than that great city, which is America. All right. And this is another effort to position themselves against their adversaries, because another one of their adversaries, of course, is Russia. And this is why NATO has made deals with these countries that border Russia to position themselves that in the event of a global war, they'll have weapons in strategic places to go on the offense as opposed to playing defense. All right, now that's just a sidebar. But let's continue here. It says the defense minister, Florence Parley, was also taken aback by Biden's announcement of the group called AUKUS. The French are outraged over Biden's unexpected announcement of America's new massive defense contract with Australia, which scuppered a similar one signed by Canberra with France's naval group in 2018. So let's get this word. For edification's sake, let's get scuppered. All right, scuppered says sink deliberately, prevent from working or succeeding. So the U.S. undercut its own ally, all right, for the sake of positioning themselves better against China. All right, and this is another fulfillment of prophecy, all right, because eventually the hate, all right, is going to proceed into burning the great city, the whore, with fire, all right, and that's going to be the firing of missiles upon America, if you can receive it. All right, Revelation chapter 17:16 reads, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. All right, because desperate times will call for desperate measures. All right, and the desperate measures is going to show the 10 horns and the 7 heads that they do not have the support from the great city that they think that they do. And this desperate move is a provocation. It's a provocation against Asia, all right, but it's also a provocation against the allies, because the other allies are going to look at this and say, well, if they're willing to do this to France, they're willing to do this to any of us. Nobody's safe. All right, and that's why the scriptures talk about a kingdom being divided against itself. Now, keep in mind, this is all going on in the midst of a pandemic, if you will, with this mandatory incentive for jabs. All right, in the midst of this, things are deteriorating geopolitically. On the world stage, all the tables are beginning to look at each other with distrust. The Lord is putting a spirit on Joe Biden in particular to make these moves to fulfill prophecy. All right, because ultimately nothing is in the control of these Edomites, beginning with their elites. Ultimately, it's the will of the Heavenly Father that is driving them to make these moves. When you look at it, all right, the Lord said he would mingle a perverse spirit in the midst. It makes no sense to do these things unannounced with another one of your allies. You just make a deal that's going to cost one of your allies $43 billion, and you don't even give them the courtesy of a call. Now, this is going to spark animosity between allies, which is prophesied. Okay? Now, let's go to Proverbs 21 really quick before I go to the kingdom divided. All right, Proverbs 21:1 reads, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. All right, and Matthew 12:25 reads, and Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And when you go into the understanding of the woman and the beast, These are all countries ruled by Edomites, which is the so-called white man for those who aren't aware. Yet they are divided amongst themselves, and a kingdom divided against itself shall not stand. And this is why what Yahushua said and what's going on in our present is a prophecy according to Revelations, the 17th chapter. As a matter of fact, let's go back to 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For Yahweh Shemel hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of Yahweh Shemel shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So the Lord has put in the minds of these kings to fulfill his will. All right. And a part of that will is the 10 horns, hating the whore and making her desolate and naked, and eating her flesh and burning her with fire. All right. And all of this is symbolic of the beast turning on the woman. And this is playing out on the geopolitical stage. All right. Now, we said before through the Spirit that the U.S. is basically trying to put a foothold in Australia and equip them with a nuclear submarine arsenal to position themselves to go on the offensive against China. Now, the South China Sea is an area of contention. Taiwan in particular is also an area of contention. All right. When you deal with Taiwan, all right, which is here, it does not recognize itself as a part of mainland China. All right, now this is heavily contested because China, for many reasons, would like Taiwan to be joined back to the mainland. All right, even their customs are still similar to China, but they are separated and they are protected by the U.S. All right, the U.S. has even agreed to defend them if ever they were attacked by China. All right, and this is another reason why getting more weapons in position to go on the offensive or the defensive is in the best interest of the U.S. All right, and this is going to force them all to go into this third world's woe. All right, because the Lord has put the spirit on China, which is the Moabites, to be in a position to contest. All right. Matter of fact, let's get this. All right. This is Psalm 60:8, and it reads, Moab is my washpot. Over Edom will I cast out my shoe. Philistia, triumph thou because of me. All right. Now, Moab is the Lord's washpot. Moab is the so-called Chinese. All right. The Japanese would be Ammon. All right. And the Lord is going to use China as a washpot to stir things up. All right. Even now, China is considering doing business with the Taliban, who have become the government of Afghanistan. All right. Afghanistan has about, I believe they said $2 trillion in resources that China could utilize. I mean, any country would be able to utilize the raw materials, but all the other nations are kind of shunning the idea of doing business with Afghanistan, with the Taliban being in rulership. But China's not against it. All right, China is actually one of the first countries that has been rumored to be considering business with the Taliban. All right. And all of this is a race to beat plowshares into pruning to swords and pruning hooks into spears. All right. Because eventually this war is going to break out. All right. So Joel chapter 3 and verse 9. And it reads, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down. Let the heathen be wakened, and come up to the valley of Yahweh-Shaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. So the Lord is using these provocations, all right, to gather these nations in this area here, all right, for the third world's woe. Now, make no mistake, it's not going to remain in this area. This is just a highlight. This is the main point of contention, all right, when World War III really breaks out on a global scale. All right, but all these nations are going to be affected. This is why Russia has made deals with China, all right, and Russia and China have made deals with Brazil, all right, and other countries. But all of these things are to position themselves because these nations are going to prepare war. All right. Now, I want to go to Global Times, which is a Chinese news outlet. And I like to touch this because it gives you perspective of how the Moabites feel about some of the things that are going on geopolitically. All right. Now, this article in particular says GT Voice calls Australia naive. It says naive Australia foots the bill for U.S. gambit. All right. And I will just skip down. It says the U.S., UK, and Australia announced Wednesday the trio would form a new trilateral security system for ensuring peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific. As part of the security pact known as AUKUS, the U.S. and the UK have pledged to provide Australia with the technology and capability to deploy nuclear-powered submarines, according to media reports. While the Biden administration officials claim that the new security partnership is not specifically targeting China, almost all the Western media analyze the move is a major step toward countering China's growing clout in the region. In response, the Chinese embassy in the U.S. said Thursday that the three English-speaking countries should shake off their Cold War mentality and ideological prejudice. All right, and this is because China is beginning to become a big influencer on the global stage. All right, they've already done work in Africa with basically using debt takeovers. And what I mean by that is they lend countries loans that they can't afford, and when they can't pay it back, they put the country into a deal where they get to extract resources and or occupy portions of the country for a set period of time. Now, they've done these kind of deals all over the place, and really what they've done is they've just copied the blueprint of America. All right, and this is why the scriptures say this. 2nd Esdras chapter 15 and verse 46. And it reads, And thou, Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon, and are the glory of her person, woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glorify and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Thou hast followed her, that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore saith Yahweh by Shai, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. Now look at how the Lord words this in 48. It says, Thou hast followed her, that is hated in all her works and inventions. All right? And that her is America. All right? And that links right up with, says, you have followed her that is hated, right? Revelation 17:16 reads, And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. All right? And she is not only going to be hated by her allies, but she's also going to be hated by her enemies. All right? And we go into that through the Spirit in Isaiah the 14th chapter, starting at the 9th verse. And the reeds, hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto thee, Art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Because the world is watching this. So the world is watching as America and the UK made a deal behind the back of their own ally. All right, the world is watching this, as well as the withdrawal from Afghanistan. The world is watching this. And these adversaries are looking at the moves that America is making in particular, but the West in general, and they're saying, Art thou become weak like we, like as us? Art thou become like unto us? And in the midst of everything that's going on, right, the jab, all right, the unrighteous decrees, all right, the Lord is stirring up the minds of these kings to go against one another. All right, and all of this is according to prophecy. All right, so let me get this right here. All right, this says right here. Yeah, now let's get this. All right, it says, what's even more ridiculous is that Australia also needs to foot the bill for playing the role of cannon fodder and trashing its relationship with France, whose leaders must be annoyed to suddenly learn that its $90 billion submarine contract with Australia may be canceled. Now, this is a Chinese news site calling Australia cannon fodder. For those who don't know, cannon fodder is soldiers regarded merely as material to be expended in war. All right. So this is a Chinese website considering Australia as cannon fodder for making this move. Because when you look at it, all right, the blind could see this. All right. This is a typical move of positioning yourself for a better defense or offense against an opponent. That's obvious. All right. It's not even about the 90 billion. For America, that's probably just a plus. All right. So let me get down here to the last paragraph. It says the U.S. Cold War gambit is a trap that will deprive its allies that are naive enough to fall for the illusion of receiving economic dividends from the U.S., while also hoping to retain the benefit that come from China's development when it comes to economic and trade cooperation. There is no way for China to develop economic ties with a country that treats it as an enemy. There is no path to future prosperity for an Australia which chooses to isolate itself from the region's largest economy. All right, because keep in mind, China has the pocket. All right, China can lock out Australia out of the economy. All right, because America isn't as strong as it used to be. All right, and the economy of China is rapidly increasing. All right, it is one of the largest, if not the largest, economy, especially in that region. All right, I believe that India is also one of the fastest growing economies. All right, now this is beautiful through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shah, because it's showing you how the Lord is moving the pieces, even in the midst of the pestilence. The Lord is moving pieces, all right, and creating this scenario where countries are forced to not only choose sides, but to defend whatever side that they pick. And we're going to get into some very interesting times as we get closer and closer to the end. Now, I mentioned India, right? And I believe India is a part of the Brics nations. Yes, it is. So you have two of the largest economies in a alliance, all right, that is outside of the American Western organization, and they are actively attempting to get around the petrodollar to increase their economies and make their economies more less dependent upon the West. And all of these things are eventually going to end up in war. All right. It's not going to just be a cold fight for position. Eventually, it's going to turn into a hot war. All right. So, Lord willing, this was edifying. I'll probably do another edition in the series through the Spirit later on this week. All right, as things develop. But until then, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rukakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah, and the sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the AUKUS, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.